Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to today's webinar about smartphones. I'd like to add that you can add all your questions during this webinar in the GoToWebinar bar on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will go through the questions at the end of this presentation. My name is Magnus Hasbo, and I'm with TCO Development. We are the organization behind the TCO Certified Sustainability Certification of IT products. Today, we're talking about 2030 sustainability goals. Why are smartphones missing the mark? 2.5 million people today are smartphone users. Still, smartphones are lagging behind computers in terms of sustainability. Why is that, and how can it be addressed? That's the topic of today. I'd first like to go through today's agenda. For you, all of you who are new to TCO Certified, I will give a brief introduction of our certification. I will then move on to the UN 2030 goals and give a general overview, and then specifically look into where our certification fits. Then I will hand over to my co-presenter and colleague, Andreas Rehn, who is project manager and part of our criteria development team. To smartphones, the problem areas we have identified, how we can help solving these problems, and what other participants in the market can do as well. If we start with a quick overview of our global sustainability certification. The certification has been around for 25 years. We started with displays. Our vision is a sustainable life cycle for IT products. TCO Certified is the world's leading and most comprehensive sustainability certification for IT products, helping you make responsible product choices that will drive the industry in a sustainable direction. It is available in 8 product categories, and those are displays, notebooks, desktop computers, and last but not least, smartphones. You can find a complete listing of certified products in our product finder, which is available on our new look webpage, tcocertified.com. A cornerstone of our certification is that it's an independent verification of compliance. This happens not only at the product level, but also in factories and with brand initiatives as well. Independent accredited partners verify that factories and products comply with all criteria in TCO Certified. Verification is done both before and after the certification process, covering the entire validity period. The process also ensures that corrective actions are implemented in all cases of factory non-conformities. TCO Certified meets the requirements of 14,024 Eco-Label Type 1 and has been approved by the Global Eco-Labeling Network. All verification is carried out by specialist partners in accordance with ISO 17025, the international standard for competence requirements applied to testing and calibration laboratories. Verification is an important aspect of what we're doing, as getting to close some of the problems is what's so important, not just setting criteria up in front. If we then move into the United Nations 2030 goals. I guess most of you have seen this, so I will just give a brief background. The Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, they're a collection of 17 global goals set by the United Nations in 2015. The broad goals are interrelated, each has its own targets to achieve. The total number of targets is 169. And as you can see, the SDGs cover a broad range of social and economic development issues, including poverty, hunger, health, education, climate change, gender equality, water, sanitation, energy, environment, and social justice. The SDGs are also known as Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The UN and Secretary General at the time this was introduced, Ban Ki-moon, stated that we don't have plan B because there is no planet B. So these goals are really important, and we are now mapping our certification to match these. So as a first step, if we look at the goals, TCO certification fits in, and you can see the colored goals. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 5, gender equality. Number 7, affordable and clean energy. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. Number 10, reduced inequalities. And number 12 as well. I will now go into the different SDGs and give examples of how certain requirements look and how that fits into our certification. So if we start with SDG number 3, good health and well-being, this applies to the manufacturing and end-of-life phases of our certification. And to be more specific, in 3.9 it says by 2030, substantially reduce the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemicals, water and soil pollution and contamination. And in our certification, we have many requirements regarding chemicals. And my colleague Andreas will go into this a bit more specific later. If we move on to SDG 5, which is gender equality, this applies to the manufacturing phase of our certification. In 5.1, it says, end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere. And in 5.5, it says, ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. And in our certification, we have a section about supply chain responsibility, and this is partly based on ILO's core convention, which addresses specific issues. Next one is SDG number 7, affordable and clean energy. And this applies to the manufacturing and use phases of our certification. In 7.3, it says, by 2030, double the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. And in our certification, as an example, we are requiring Energy Star certification, which helps promoting and pushing the products towards better energy efficiency. SDG number 8 talks about decent work and economic growth, and this applies to the manufacturing phase of our certification. 8.7 talks about take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor and modern slavery and human trafficking and secure the prohibition of the worst forms of child labor, and by 2025 end child labor in all its forms. In section 8.8, it says protect labor rights and promote safe and secure working environments for all workers, including migrant workers, in particular women migrants and those in precarious employment. These requirements are also addressed in our certification in the supply chain responsibility section, which contains 8 of ILO's core conventions. Next one is SDG number 10, reduced inequalities. In 10.2, it says, by 2030, empower and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all, irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, or other status. And in our certification, we speak about socially responsible manufacturing in the supply chain responsibility area. And there are specific non-discrimination clauses. And finally, in SDG number 12, this speaks about responsible consumption and production. And this applies to all phases of our certification: manufacturing, use phase, and end-of-life phase. In section 12.4, it says by 2020 achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes throughout their life cycle and significantly reduce the release to air, water, and soil in order to minimize their adverse impact on human health and the environment. And in 12.5, it says by 2030 actually reduced waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. And in our certification, we have requirements about chemicals, about recycling of product packaging, about product longevity, etc., which applies to these requirements. And now I will hand over to my colleague Andreas Rehn, who will specifically talk about the problems related to smartphones, why they are not, why are they missing the mark, and also potential solutions.
Thank you, Magnus. So, why are smartphones missing the mark? Well, we have identified 3 main problem areas connected to this. And first off is production volume. Second is product lifetime, and third is recycling, problems connected to recycling. These are 3 areas we need to find solutions for if we want to become or move towards a more circular economy. And we believe that this is a route we will have to take sooner or later if we want to continue life on this planet. So if we start out with volumes then. Today, the volumes in production is going up rapidly for smartphones. In this picture, in this diagram, you can see a projection of the shipments in thousands of units. With this sort of numbers comes big problems as well. In China, some students are today being forced at universities to work extra at factories manufacturing smartphones due to worker shortage. And this goes hand in hand, and this problem will increase year by year as the production volumes goes up. If you continue and talk a little bit more about the waste that is being generated during all phases of smartphones life cycle, it can be illustrated with this picture. Here, the tip of the iceberg stands for the smartphone itself. After that comes the waste from manufacturing, material production, and mining, which makes up the vast majority of the waste. Last, and at the bottom of the picture, you can see the waste generated from energy production needed for producing the materials and the assembly of the components. This picture shows that consumers will have difficulties to see the overall impact on the environment from their own consumption. They only see the waste that occurs when they throw their discarded products, but they never see all the waste that is generated during the production. This makes it more difficult for consumers to change the behavior to a more sustainable one. And these numbers are based on a report published by the Swedish Environmental Research Institute back in 2015. If we take a look at an average smartphone that weighs 169 grams, it creates around 86 kilos in waste when produced. This is a huge problem when we zoom out and look at it from a macro perspective. If we multiply the 86 kilos per phone with the yearly production of smartphones, the total waste amounts to around 136 million tons, or in comparison, 13,500 Eiffel Towers. That's enough Eiffel Towers to cover the distance between New York to Los Angeles. If we move in to the second big problem area for smartphones, that is the short lifetime and the lack of reuse. On average, a user keeps their phone for only about 1 year and 9 months, but they keep their notebooks for about 3 to 5 years on average. So why, you might ask? Well, here are some of the biggest problems connected to why smartphone lifetime is so much shorter than other IT products. First off is fragility. Screens and displays break way too easy. I bet that you have seen or know someone with a broken screen. And this is very bad since the glass and the display stands for the majority of the waste footprint of the smartphone. This means that if you need to replace your screen and display, it is almost as bad as buying a new device from a waste footprint perspective. Another thing that goes into fragility, that some devices shuts down in cold or hot temperature. Second up is performance. So subpar display performance or subpar processing power devices leads to bad user experience. And if you buy or put those types of devices on the market, this will result in less reuse and thus meaning that you have to produce new products to compensate for the need of smartphones on the market. And last but not least, batteries. So batteries, the biggest problem with them is they hold too few charging cycles, or they can withstand too few charging cycles. And as a result, the batteries grows outdated or old before the product itself does. Some of you might have read and heard about some manufacturers lowering the performance when the battery gets old because it cannot deliver enough charge. This is a big problem because this tricks the customers into believing that their phone is being outdated when in fact it's just the batteries that needs to be replaced. And that goes, and with that said, we go into the third problem with batteries, and that is that it's become more hard to replace the batteries for users due to them being built in today. And if we look at how we use a phone today compared to, for example, 10 years ago, people use their smartphone way more today for different kinds of applications as well. And with that said, it's even harder for them to be without a phone. So if they have to turn it in and wait for a day or two, they might up instead buying a new one and throwing the old one in the trash can or like or something to keep it as a backup. And this is not a good thing, we think. Our third identified problem area connected to sustainability is recycling. So here we have looked at three main areas as well, and that's contaminated materials, scam recycling, and the rare earth metals. So starting off with contamination, then a lot of plastics and other material are contaminated by different chemicals and other substances such as heavy metals, flame retardants, and plasticizers. This results in that these materials cannot be brought back into the material loop, resulting in that new virgin material must be added into the loop to create new devices. Second up is scam recycling. BAN, Basel Action Network, which is a non-profit organization that aims to ensure that e-waste is recycled responsibly rather than dumped on less developed countries, came out with a study called The Scam Recycling Continues in 2016. In this study, they placed 205 GPS trackers into different types of electronics and turned them in to different recyclers across the US. From these 205 products being turned in, 40% went offshore, and most of them ended up in illegal export streams. As a result of this massive global flow of e-waste, former farming villages in countries like Vietnam, China, and Nigeria are now e-waste dumps. In these impoverished communities, often means burning circuit boards, soaking microchips in acid, and burning plastics to sort them by order. In short, it means poisoning the people and the planet. Last but not least is rare earth metals. So rare earth metals not being put back into the loop due to no financial incentives because the volumes in each unit makes it hard and or expensive to extract them, based on a study by MIT from 2016. The problems of usage and depletion of critical elements is going to shape the future. If major changes are not made to the ways in which we mine, consume, utilize, and repurpose these elements, by the end of the century, we will face disastrous shortages in food, consumer, critical technologies, resulting in major world conflicts based on resource competition. But we're not just going to talk about the problems. We're also going to talk a little bit about the solutions. So how do we help to solve the problems with TCO certified then? Well, for starters, we look a lot at extended lifetime. So we want to make sure that products certified accordingly to TCO certified has better performance then it should be in the top 30 to 50% of the market. We also have started looking at batteries and mainly the cycles, how many cycles, charging cycles the batteries hold. But we look into the that you should be able to swap out a battery with ease if the battery gets old. And then the third part is durability. So you should be able to drop your phone or notebook without it breaking down. Because accidents happens, and a smartphone is like a wear and tear item, so it should be able to take some hits before breaking down. And with these three, performance, batteries, and durability combined, we think we go into the second point here. So that we think will enable reuse. So enabling reuse helps solving the first problem area, which was production volumes. And this, as I said, to less students having to work in the factories or being forced to work in the factories. And when we start reusing the products, we can also stop mining new material and start recycling some material and put material back into the loop, so we can move towards a more circular economy. Third is easier recycling. So we work a lot with less harmful chemicals, and to achieve this, we use something called green screen. So green screen is a new way of looking at chemicals. So the traditional way is to have a blacklist where you ban different chemicals. But the problem with this is that thousands and thousands of new chemicals are being put onto the market each year. That makes it impossible for legislation to ban all of them because they can't keep up. So what we did was that instead of having different chemicals being banned and put on a blacklist, we said, okay, let's ban all chemicals and create a good list, a list that is a list with chemicals that is okay to use. So then it's up to the manufacturer to assess the chemicals and prove that they are not as harmful as other alternatives before they can put them into the products. And therefore TCO certify helps when it comes to recycling, because the recycler has a better overview of what is in the products, and then the material can be brought back into the loop, which benefits circularity. And by limiting the usage of harmful chemicals, we reduce the exposure for people working illegal facilities and illegal dumping sites, which no current regulation reaches. And even at low levels, toxic substances can have adverse health effects. Workers can easily become contaminated, and without proper safeguards, they can unknowingly transport these toxins home to their families and neighbors. So by using TCO Certified, you therefore help to reduce the fastest growing waste stream on the planet, namely e-waste. And these three combined, extended lifetime, the enabling of reuse and easy recycling, opens up for new business models, we think. And this is something needed if we want to move towards a more circular economy. So what can operators, purchasers, and end users do then? Well, if we start off with operators must start as customers and not retailers. They buy the majority of all smartphones. Accordingly, they also have the most power to influence the manufacturers. We at TCO Certified know that this is true from experience, because we have seen a similar case firsthand in China with a large factory that consists of almost 1 million workers. In this factory, they had problems with overtime and other social and safety issues. But due to the size of the factory, the individual brands did not stand for a large enough percentage of the total production to be able to influence the owner of the factory into taking care of these issues. So how did TCO Certified go about to solve this problem then? Well, we contacted all the brands manufacturing certified products in this factory and helped them come together and put collective pressure. By doing so, the potential loss of business could no longer be overseen by the manufacturers. And as a result, they had to change their ways, leading to a better environment for the workers. This is not a one-off example, we think, but rather something that can be done by the operators as well, potentially changing the course of history for smartphones. So if we move on to purchasers, so the creation, we think that, oh no, sorry, I missed the second point on operators. I'm gonna go through that one as well. So the second one for operators is sustainable alternatives. The creation of a section with more sustainable alternatives in their web shops could therefore be an additional way to go. We think this is important because it is hard for the customers to be an expert on it. If the operators help to spread awareness regarding more sustainable alternatives, they can help their customers to make a more sustainable choice. For example, this is already being done by grocery shops, because they often display when a product is ecologically produced, giving the customer a choice to do good without having to do much research beforehand. Now we go into the purchasers. So first off, by centralizing the purchasing of smartphones and by limiting the selection to more sustainable alternatives, the purchaser can increase the share of more sustainable products, thus putting more pressure on brands that do not care as much about the social and environmental costs connected to smartphones. Limiting the selection also makes it easier for the employee, not just for themselves, but also for the planet and the workers assembling and eventually disassembling the smartphone. And for the last part, end users. End users should ask for more sustainable alternatives to create demand. But you should not just ask for it, we think. Vote with your wallet. That's how you make your voice heard. And make sure you do not have more than one phone laying around as an extra in your drawer as a backup. Donate your old phones to charity or sell them to give them a second life. But regardless of which group you belong to, it is you that have the power to change the industry. So don't go around waiting for change. Be the change. Thank you. So, if you have any questions, feel free to to message us through the system here. Or if you are shy, you're always welcome to send in your questions through the 2 emails addresses presented here. And we'll start going through the questions when they come in. But you only have around, I'd say, 3 minutes to send them in. After that, I'm gonna take it that you're too shy to ask anything. But I wanna give all of you a big thank you for listening today. Other questions, please feel free to email us and we'll do our best to respond as quick as possible. Thank you.